The High Council had conquered 17 star systems. Their empire stretched across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. For 8,000 years, they had never known defeat. Their ships darkened the skies of countless worlds. Their name brought immediate surrender from lesser species. Then they discovered Earth. Grand Admiral stood before the massive holographic display in the war chamber. His 4 eyes studied the small blue planet rotating slowly in the projection. Such a tiny world, such primitive creatures living on it. The humans had barely reached their own moon. They possessed no faster-than-light travel. Their weapons were laughable compared to plasma cannons. "We should conquer them within 3 rotations," said War Commander. His scaled hand gestured dismissively at the planet. "They have no orbital defenses, no energy shields. Their population is scattered and divided into hundreds of different nations. They fight among themselves constantly." Nodded slowly. This would be an easy victory, another trophy world for the Empire. The High Council had already decided Earth would fall. But first, protocol demanded they study the enemy. Every species had its secrets. Every civilization hid something useful. They had grown powerful by learning from those they conquered. Intelligence officer had spent 40 cycles analyzing human transmissions. He had learned their languages. He had studied their history. He had watched their entertainment broadcasts and read their digital archives. Now he stood before the council with a strange expression on his face. His normally silver skin had turned pale gray. "Report," commanded. His voice wavered slightly. "Grand Admiral, I have completed my analysis of human civilization. I must recommend we abandon the invasion." Silence filled the chamber. Several council members exchanged confused glances. War Commander let out a harsh laugh. "Abandon? You suggest the mighty Empire retreat from primitives who cannot even leave their own solar system?" "Yes," said simply, "I do." Raised one clawed hand for silence. He had served with for 200 years. The intelligence officer was not prone to fear or foolishness. Something had genuinely disturbed him. "Explain yourself," said. Activated his data pad. New images appeared in the holographic display. Strange cylindrical objects, massive underground facilities, complex delivery systems. "These are called nuclear weapons," said. "The humans developed them approximately 80 of their years ago. Each device releases energy equivalent to millions of their primitive explosive units. A single weapon can destroy an entire city. The radiation afterward poisons the land for generations." War Commander snorted. "We have seen planet-killing weapons before. They had antimatter bombs. We still conquered them." "The weapons themselves are not what concerns me," said. "It is how the humans use them, or rather how they choose not to use them." He pulled up more images, maps showing different human nations, colored zones indicating weapon placement, numbers that made even pause. The humans currently possess approximately 13,000 of these nuclear weapons. They are distributed among 9 different nations. The 2 largest stockpiles belong to nations called Russia and the United States. These 2 powers have been rivals for many decades. "Rivals with such weapons?" asked Council Elder. "How have they not destroyed each other?" "That is precisely my point," said. "They developed a concept they call mutually assured destruction. The humans shortened this to the term MAD." He let that word hang in the air. "The principle is simple yet terrifying. Both sides possess enough weapons to completely annihilate the other. If one side launches an attack, the other side will detect it. They have systems designed to launch immediate retaliation. By the time the first missiles land, the second wave is already in the air. Both civilizations are guaranteed to be completely destroyed." War Commander shifted uncomfortably. "So neither side attacks because both sides would die?" "Correct. The humans have lived under this arrangement for nearly 70 years. They wake every morning knowing that their entire species could be extinct by sunset. They have built machines that can end all life on their planet. They keep these machines armed and ready. They have come close to using them several times, yet they continue existing in this state of perpetual near annihilation. The chamber had grown very quiet. "They are insane," whispered Council Elder. "Perhaps," said, "but their insanity has kept them alive. No nation dares challenge the nuclear powers directly. The weapons have prevented major wars between their largest civilizations. Peace through the promise of total destruction." Grand Admiral stared at the holographic Earth. His mind struggled to process what he was hearing. The had always viewed war as a calculated exercise. Attack when you could win. Retreat when victory was impossible. Sacrifice was acceptable if the gain was greater. But these humans had created a system where victory was impossible for everyone, where the only outcomes were peace or extinction, and they had chosen to live with that reality rather than disarm. "There is more," said. His voice had dropped even lower. "I analyzed their response scenarios. Their military planners have considered alien invasion. They have discussed what they call scorched earth tactics." New data filled the display: theoretical battle plans, strategic analyses, simulation results. The humans have calculated that if faced with an overwhelming extraterrestrial threat, they would launch all nuclear weapons at the invading force and at their own planet. They would destroy their cities, their resources, their infrastructure, everything an invader might want to capture. They would kill themselves rather than surrender. Asked. His earlier confidence had vanished entirely. Without hesitation, their history shows this pattern repeatedly. When faced with conquest, humans have burned their own cities. They have poisoned their own wells. They have destroyed everything of value rather than let enemies claim it. They call it denial operations. Taking Earth would mean taking a radioactive wasteland filled with contaminated corpses. Grand Admiral felt something he had not experienced in centuries. It took him a moment to recognize the emotion. Fear. "These creatures strap nuclear weapons to missiles that can reach orbit," continued. "They have thousands of them. Our fleet would approach their planet, they would detect us, and they would launch everything they have at us, at each other, at themselves. Our shields could likely withstand the initial assault, but the debris field alone would damage multiple vessels. The radiation would require extensive decontamination, and we would inherit nothing but a dead world." Council Elder spoke slowly. "What kind of species develops the capacity to destroy itself completely and then keeps that capacity active for decades?" "A species that refuses to lose," said, "at any cost. The humans have a saying, 'If I cannot have it, no one will.' They mean it literally. They have encoded self-destruction into their basic defense strategy." War Commander looked at the casualty projections had prepared. Even in the best scenarios, the fleet would suffer significant losses. For what? A burned planet, dead slaves, resources turned to ash and poison. "The surrendered when they saw our fleet," said quietly. "The negotiated terms. Even the proud eventually accepted defeat, but these humans would rather die than kneel." "Worse than that," said, "they would take us with them or try to. Their weapons could not destroy our fleet entirely, but they could hurt us, and they would smile while launching them. I found recordings of their leaders discussing nuclear war. They do not speak of it with horror. They speak of it with cold calculation. Acceptable losses, survival percentages, rebuild timelines." He showed a clip of human military officers discussing strike scenarios. Their voices were calm, professional. They spoke about killing billions of their own kind as if discussing weather patterns. The council watched in horrified silence. "They have normalized extinction," said finally. "They live each day with the knowledge that everything could end, and they have accepted this. They have built their entire global security architecture around the promise of mutual annihilation." "The concept has a certain terrible elegance," admitted. "No species attacks a nuclear power directly because the cost is too high. The humans achieved something we never have. They made war itself obsolete between their major nations, through the threat of absolute destruction. Could we disable their weapons before they launch? Asked. His voice held little hope. Unlikely. Their systems are designed for exactly this scenario. Multiple redundancies. Launch authority distributed across many individuals. Some weapons are on vehicles designed to survive initial attacks and retaliate afterward. They call them second strike capabilities. Even if we destroyed 90% of their arsenal in a first attack, the remaining 10% could devastate our invasion force. Grand Admiral turned away from the display. He walked to the viewing port and stared out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights was Earth, a tiny blue world filled with creatures who had invented mutual suicide as a defense strategy. "I have conquered worlds that fought back," he said quietly. "I have faced enemies who preferred death to surrender, but I have never encountered a species that institutionalized apocalypse, that wove the end of all things into their daily existence and continued living as if it were normal." He turned back to face the council. "What happens when such a species develops faster than light travel? When they bring this philosophy to the stars, they will not merely threaten to destroy their own world. They will threaten to destroy everything. And they will mean it, because they have already made peace with extinction." The chamber remained silent for a long moment. "I am recommending to the High Council that Earth be designated a quarantine world," said. "No contact, no invasion. We will monitor them from a distance. If they destroy themselves, we lose nothing. If they survive and develop advanced technology, we will need to reconsider our approach to them entirely." "And if they find us first?" asked Council Elder. Looked at the elderly counselor with ancient eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "Then we had better hope they believe we are worth more alive than dead. Because if humans decide their survival requires our destruction, they will accept any cost to achieve it. They have proven this to themselves. Every day they wake up with 13,000 nuclear weapons pointed at each other is another day they prove it again." War Commander looked at Earth one final time. Such a small planet, such a primitive species, such an unthinkable philosophy. "They are not mad," he said slowly. "They are something far worse. They are rational beings who have accepted madness as the price of survival, and they have thrived under conditions that would break any other civilization." The Council voted unanimously to avoid Earth. The mighty empire, conquerors of 17 star systems, turned away from a species that had not yet left its own solar neighborhood. Not out of mercy, out of fear, because the humans had already proven they would end their own world rather than surrender it, and they understood that some victories cost more than they were worth. Earth remained free, not because humanity was strong, but because humanity was willing to be the last thing standing on a pile of radioactive ash. "And call it victory,"